Ramattra is very, very good right now. You may have noticed it on ladder, you may have noticed it when the Season 10 tank patch came out, and you may have noticed it from watching any OWCS slash Face It League recently. Ramattra is a very, very popular pick. Now, I'm not going to be talking about why that is the case in this video. What I want to talk about is that since Ramattra is so widely used right now, I want to talk about some things about Ramattra's design that kind of irk me a little bit, because I think the idea behind Ramattra is really, really cool, and I do really like playing Ramattra, but my big problem with him is that they have made the two modes, Omnic and Nemesis mode, different. Too different, in fact. Different is not the right word. I mean, they're not created equal. Nemesis mode is, by design, supposed to be the more powerful mode, right? You're supposed to feel more powerful. He's got that speed boost. He's got the big punches. You know, he's got the block, right? You're supposed to feel like you're this kind of unstoppable force type of tank, but you only get that for a little bit amount of time, right? The problem that I find with this design is not really in the design, it's in the balance of Ramattra, because more and more and more, they continue to make Nemesis mode better in comparison to Omnic mode. So it's really hard for Omnic mode to compete when Nemesis mode is so much better. Again, that is part of the design philosophy where you kind of want to have this power spike in Nemesis mode. But I think Ramattra's Omnic mode being so kind of wet noodle boring really doesn't make this character as fun to play and isn't as engaging for the other team when he goes into Nemesis mode. So I wanted to show you, this was the change that kind of set off this idea in my head, the one that was like really kind of blatantly crazy IMO, was when the Season 10 mid-season came out and they buffed all the tanks, and they gave Ramattra, specifically in Nemesis mode, an extra 75 armor, and they made his pummel damage go up. Now, it's only by 5, but you have to remember, one, tank armor got way better in this patch, and Ramattra got a lot of it, so he is going to be so much more survivable while he's in Nemesis mode. But also you have to remember with Pummel is that since it is like a piercing ability and it goes through multiple targets at once, this is actually a pretty insane buff to his DPS, especially against Brawl cores. Now, you may remember that they did actually nerf this in that hotfix, where his cooldown was increased so that when you went out of Nemesis mode, you had to wait an extra second, and then his armor and health were decreased, but this was actually his base armor and his base health. So what this actually did was make Ramattra, yes, weaker on average, but it also hit his Omnic mode. And since Omnic mode has a lower total health pool, it actually hits the Omnic mode way worse. So you are disincentivized to be in Omnic mode more, making Nemesis mode much more appealing. Basically, trying to stay in Nemesis mode as much as possible is what you're looking for. And now, since I've gone through my balance spiel, let's go ahead. We're going to take a look at some footage here, just for your eyes in the background, so you have something to look at. Ignore my giant player cam here. But I think that the problem that I see with this is that Ramattra really does get to be in Nemesis mode really often. It is not hard to get into Nemesis mode. It is not hard to keep yourself alive in Omnic mode, especially if you just kind of play really safe and wait for your Nemesis mode to come back. When you have Ravenous Vortex, a very common thing that you can do is start with Nemesis mode, go in, use it for the 8 seconds, pop Ravenous Vortex, not Ravenous Vortex, Annihilation, sorry. Pop Annihilation. Now you have Nemesis mode back yet again. You're in it for up to 20 seconds, and then by the time you're out of it, so long as you've been in it for 8 seconds, your Nemesis mode will be back on cooldown. So you'll be back in Nemesis mode yet again. It actually skews how long Ramattra is in Nemesis mode more towards Nemesis mode, even though that is supposed to be kind of his special power-up type of mode, instead of his, honestly, his default. Yes, he starts in Omnic mode, and you don't want to waste your Nemesis mode, sure, but a lot of times it feels like you are just going to be in Nemesis mode more and more and more. And that initial idea of them having this tempo tank where you choose which form you want to be in depending on the situation, and maybe you have to give up certain advantages early to be in that form, is kind of out the window when one of the forms is just so laughably worse than the other one, right? You're basically, the gameplay group of Ramattra right now is kind of biding your time in Omnic mode until you get that one, or like the time that you should go into Nemesis mode, or unless you've been forced out and you have to pop it early, right? That's kind of what you're doing on Ramattra. In my opinion, I would think that Ramattra would be much more fun if there was more incentive to be in Omnic mode compared to Nemesis mode. And the reason being is that then you have to make a decision more so about when you want to be in either mode, or particularly when you want to cancel one mode and go into the other, right? So basically what I've kind of come up with are a couple of pretty early on solutions about what you could do to make Omnic mode more appealing, and also to make Ramattra's gameplay loop a little more engaging overall. So basically the easiest one that you could do, in my opinion, is to, is to make Omnic mode have different advantages that he doesn't have in Nemesis mode. And the thing that I've kind of come up with here is, like, what if he had augmented abilities while he was in Omnic mode compared to Nemesis mode? So we both know that he can, or we all know, I don't know why both know, we know that he can shield before he goes into Nemesis mode, so that the shield is out while it's active. And we also know that his grenade is an ability both, or in both modes rather. So for the grenade, that's an easy one. What if it had a different effect, or an extra effect rather, while it's in Omnic mode? So right now it has a slow. What if it did maybe a little more damage? Maybe it had a little more slow. Maybe it has an increased damage modifier, although that is a scary thing, and I'm just kind of throwing stuff out here. What if it had an extra status condition, right? What if it was actually more of a hinder? What if it was something like that? Now that might be annoying. Again, I'm just kind of saying, right? It would give it more juice, more reason to use that grenade while you are in Omnic mode instead. And then for shield, shield can be up while it's shield can be up while you're in Nemesis mode. So I had the idea of, like, what if shield had a longer duration while you were in Omnic mode? So you know how in Annihilation, his the rate that it ticks down is slower when you're touching somebody with your Annihilation, right? So what if the rate that the shield decayed and went away was actually slower if you were in Omnic mode, to better encourage playing around the shield? Or if you need the shield more, then you're not just going to throw it up always and go into Nemesis mode. You could actually have a better incentive, like a better shield, so that maybe you can greed a little harder before you go into Nemesis mode, right? There's a little more incentive there. You have a little more of decision about when you're going to go into either mode. And the reason I do this is because you don't want to just straight buff it, because it ends up becoming a buff for Nemesis mode if it's just like something that is always active on the shield, right? Since you can shield while you're in Nemesis mode. So you have to kind of consider that when you do that type of stuff. Same thing for the grenade, although I think for the grenade it doesn't last nearly as long. It isn't as much of an issue, but you would kind of have to keep that in mind as well. I also had the idea of, what if you were in Nemesis or in Omnic mode, you get a very slight damage boost while you're shooting through your shield, like a mini BAP window. Again, damage boosts are something to be careful with. So something like that is kind of what I was thinking about, right? So you balance some of them out, you balance some of the power out, maybe make Omnic mode a little more incentivizing to be in. Then it kind of becomes, well, I'm in Nemesis mode right now, and I want to use one of my abilities, or like my grenade, but I actually think it's better if I use the hinder effect from the grenade now. So I'm going to cancel my Nemesis mode early, give up some of my survivability and speed and everything for that hinder effect or something like that, right? Or, again, maybe it's maybe you throw up a shield and you Omnic mode, and then you Nemesis mode, and then you see a better situation where you would need the shield, so you actually cancel it which is probably like, it's still kind of like a bad play on your part, but like you cancel it and now you get the higher duration or whatever thing you've added to the shield. Stuff like that I think could be really interesting. And then also you're actually less incentivized to be in Nemesis mode more when you have like Nemesis mode, Annihilation, Nemesis mode back to back, because you are actually missing out on some of your utility. So there are going to be some situations where you're going to want to be in Nemesis mode all the time, but some situations where when you come out of Annihilation, you're going to want to not use your Nemesis mode. You know what I mean? Something like that. So that's kind of what I think they should do with Ramattra. Some extra incentive to use the Omnic mode, make him more interesting, engaging, and of course, you could nerf Nemesis mode too. I think the damage reduction with block is a lot. If you gave block a resource, that would be really good and incentivize you using Omnic mode too if you don't want him to be super duper powerful, because again, he is pretty powerful right now. All right, let me see. I've got a chatter that says, done some research, and ever since his release in December 2022, he's gotten 13 balance changes. Out of those 13 changes to his kit, 2 were directed towards things that were exclusive to Omnic mode, staff and shield, and they were both minor buffs. All of the other 11 changes were buffs/nerfs to the Nemesis mode. Yeah, I think they made like a brawl tank that they like, and they don't really know what to do with Omnic mode, right? Because Omnic mode, they don't want to make this super slow tank, like, you know, they don't want to make like another Orisa or something who's like super slow, super long range, and I definitely agree with that. But also, I think block kind of makes Ramattra super duper slow anyways. He is a slower brawl tank. He is closer to a Reinhardt type of speed than he is like a Junker Queen or something like that. So they've already kind of done that. So I think disincentivizing things from Nemesis mode may actually, I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing, right? If you get people in Omnic mode more, they might be playing slower, but so long as that survivability isn't frustrating or too overbearing, I don't think it's really that much of a bad thing, to be honest with you. So I think Ramattra is an interesting case, and the thing about Ramattra is that I still think he's pretty fun. I mean, going into Omnic mode, or sorry, Nemesis mode, punch, all of that, it is really fun. I think the power spike is a really fun idea that should be there. Like, I do agree that Nemesis mode should be more powerful than Omnic mode, but Omnic mode shouldn't just be completely left to the dust, in my opinion. Like, there should be some incentive to really using this mode other than it's worse if I use, or like, I need to have Omnic mode for something else, you know, or Nemesis. I know my language is getting all mixed up, but if Nemesis mode is too overbearing and Omnic mode just becomes buying your time until you get back to Nemesis mode, I think there's a problem, and I think that is very often what Ramattra's gameplay loop is like. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you think would be a good way to make Ramattra a little more engaging for everybody, for the Ramattra player and for the people playing against Ramattra? Because I do think that they had this, you know, this buzzword, the tempo tank, is a very silly, funny thing that we talk about now. Is like, what did they even mean by that? But I kind of get the idea of what they were going for. I just don't think that that is exactly what has happened. I don't think they've really gotten to that fantasy. So let me know in the comments below what you think that they should do to Ramattra, or if you think they shouldn't do anything to Ramattra. He's perfectly fine. I'd love to hear it. This was streamed live, twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays is when I am live. Always something to talk to me about. Like and subscribe while you're here on YouTube. I do really appreciate it. And also, if you have any hot takes or replay codes you want me to take a look at, just want to talk general Overwatch, join my Discord. It is down below. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day.